Stores and farmers markets are lush right now with colorful produce, including tomatoes of every color, ripe off the vine or cooked up in a sauce. Nothing complements a tasty dish like a great glass of wine. And here with her picks for perfect pairing is wine expert Natalie Maclean. Nice to see you.
It's great to see you, Jeff.
Now listen, just before we get to the tomatoes, which to me is just a fascinating endeavor here, but how's the grape harvest been this year?
It's going really well. Actually, if you ask winemakers, they're a bit superstitious to call it, but they're very optimistic, and they're saying that this could be a really good year. 2010 was the last great year.
Right.
But what's happening this year from coast to coast, from the Okanagan Valley to the Annapolis Valley, Niagara and the county, it's been dry and hot, and that's great for grape ripening.
Conditions.
So they're really, really thinking. But these next few weeks, this is when it's a make or break year.
Critical right now.
Exactly.
All right. Now, we're pairing wines with tomato dishes, and I got to tell you, I mean, oftentimes we'll have people on talk about the perfect wine, you know, to eat with pasta or what to eat with this meat. But tomatoes, I mean, I think that's not top of mind for everybody. So what should we be thinking of?
Well, we should first of all be thinking that tomato dishes and tomatoes themselves can go beautifully with wine, with the right wine. And fortunately, Canada produces, I think, the ultimate tomato wines.
And you've got a selection of reds and whites.
Exactly. So when we think about tomatoes, there are all kinds of different types. And, you know, I was in the grocery store yesterday picking out these, and we've got heirloom tomatoes, we've got green and yellow and red. All tomatoes are not made equally, and they don't taste the same.
Right.
Yeah, so when we look at the different colors, they tend to be sweeter than your traditional red tomatoes. The red tomatoes have the most acidity.
Well, and that's when I wonder, I mean, we'll get to that, but I mean, how does the acidity of a tomato affect the wine?
Yes. Well, what you need when you have acidity in any dish, let alone tomatoes, is acidity in your wine. And we do that so beautifully in Canada, whether we're talking our Pinot Noirs or our crisp, zesty whites. So if you match a wine that doesn't have that acidity, it's going to taste flabby in comparison to the tomatoes.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
So you mentioned now some of these non-traditional tomatoes and the smaller ones. Let's, for example, say you're having a dish like we've got this linguine here, I believe.
That's right.
So now we're pairing that with these reds based on the tomatoes.
Absolutely, because pasta, like chicken, is a very neutral vehicle. It's what you put with it. It's all about the sauce and the tomatoes.
So what have you got here in terms of...
I've got some spectacular wines here. This is Stratus red and white, all across the board. Even though this isn't a Pinot Noir, this is a red blend, but we have a beautiful balancing acidity in our wines, and they go really well with these pasta dishes.
And do we have to balance the acidity? Are all the tomatoes have a certain degree of acidity? I mean, you mentioned, of course, that the colored ones are, you know, a little sweeter, but they have some acidity as well.
Oh, they all have acidity, and it also depends on the dish. So the pasta is going to soften the perception of acidity. So it's different if you're just eating a raw tomato and drinking wine.
Right.
It's different if you put some salt.
Do people do that?
Well, I do. But I'm
yeah,
string.
okay,
so anyway, let's stick with what most people do. So if you put like basil or olive oil or mozzarella cheese, like a caprese salad, that's going to soften the acidity or the perception of acidity in the tomatoes.
Right. Now, and I have to see, so is this
Marquesa,
an ice
that's from Prince Edward County.
Yes.
And it's not an ice wine, it's a port style wine, but we do have ice wine here from Reef.
Right. So what would you have with ice wine?
Well, you know, then you can get into
sweet.
it is. Then you can get into the snacking. So you know, your nachos and your salsas and that sort of thing, because you might have other sweeter things on the go.
Right. So there literally is something for everything.
There is something for everyone.
All right. Natalie, thank you very much. Nice to see you this morning. Okay, tomatoes and wine. There we go.
Right.
And for more great pairing ideas and a link to Natalie's website, head over to canadam.ctvnews.ca.